back to Blackheart Gardens, and the first of hopefully many how-to videos here on the channel. In this episode, we're going to take a look at how to build a DIY floating SCROG net for the inside of your grow tent. Just taking you through some of the preliminary design here. I like to model all of my designs in 3D before I do any builds, just to save any wasted time. This design is modeled after some of the designs that I found on Envy Closet Medgrower's old channel. With his floating SCROGs that he's built, I decided to take that design and tweak it a little bit to suit my own needs. This design is meant to be extra strong and versatile. Something much better than you can get from those traditional style nets that you get at the hydro store that leave particles in your flower and just don't do a very good job overall of supporting the plant. We're just taking a look at the finished design here. You can see this is designed to fit in a 4x4 tent with 3-inch squares. If your dimensions are a bit different, or if you'd like different squares, then you may need to modify the design a little bit. However, there is a link in the description to a detailed parts list and diagram for the pieces you'll need for this project. If you'd like to replicate it yourself, feel free to do so. This design is very simple, cheap to make, and easy to use. Let's take a look at the most complicated piece here, this corner support element. Now these two surfaces here, the ends of the side pieces, press against the tent pole as it's pulled in this way by the two wing nuts here. And as you tighten those wing nuts, it tightens the net to the pole and holds it in place. That way you don't need any extra legs to take up room in your grow tent. This is especially convenient if you have an extra tight space, or if you just like to maximize the grow space that you have already. That's pretty much it for the design. Let's go ahead and get the build started. Okay, let's quickly go over the tools and parts you'll need for the build. You'll need a square. This one here is broken. I just lost the little screw that holds it together, but it'll work. We'll make it work. We're not building rockets here. You'll need a tape measure. Gloves. These are optional. You'll need a saw of some sort. I'm using a jigsaw to cut the lumber with here. You'll also need some sandpaper. You'll need a drill of some sort. I've got this Ryobi little 12-volt here. You'll also need some bits to go along with it. I'll also be using my drill press. That's an optional tool. You don't need it, but it is nice to have. Another optional tool is the Dremel with some sort of round bit. This will be used to chamfer the corners that we drill in the wood later. Let's go over the parts you'll need for this project. You'll need some 1/2-inch EMT pipe straps. Now, these things are about $1 a piece at the hardware store. The bag of 25 of them is about $6, so you do the math. It's a pretty good deal. Go with the bag. You'll need some screws, 1.5 inch long, diameter's not so important. You'll also need some smaller hardware, some number 10-24 wing nuts and matching washers. You'll also need some number 10-24 by 2.5 inch long screws. These will go through the corner supports. You'll also need some contractor's twine. I like to use this because it says it won't unravel, and that was one major issue I was having with those hydro store nets. They also come in all kinds of different colors, so if you want yellow, white, green, plenty of options. You'll also need some lumber. Now these are 1x2s, but they are technically 3/4 inch by 1.5 inches. And you'll need 3 pieces of this. They generally come in 96-inch lengths. You'll need 3 pieces of that to complete this project. Make sure you check these very well. They can have all kinds of cracks and pieces missing, and they can be warped, so make sure you look these over before you buy them. That's pretty much it. Let's get the build started. Now for our side pieces, we'll need to mark these out at 46 inches and 92 inches. So we'll go ahead and mark 4 sections out that way. Once we've got our 4 side pieces marked out, we'll go ahead and draw a nice perpendicular line right across the board like that. And then we'll get our saw and go ahead and make some cuts. As I said earlier, make sure you inspect your lumber really well before you bring it home. This one got by me at the lumber yard. As I was moving this board, I heard a little crack. I put some pressure on it, and sure enough, yeah, that's how that came to me. And I inspected these really well before I brought them home, so make sure you give these a good look before you buy them. Regardless, let's have some coffee here. And we need to go ahead and mark out our corner supports. Now we'll need 4 pieces at 7 1/4 inches long, so we'll go ahead and mark that out here. Okay, now let's go ahead and check our measurements, make sure we're accurate. And then we'll connect these marks with a nice perpendicular line across the board here. Now that we've got our 4 pieces marked out, we need to mark 1.5 inches in from each side of these 4 pieces. So we'll go ahead and mark 1.5 inches in from this side, and 1.5 inches from the other side. Once we've got that marked out, we'll go ahead and connect those marks with a nice perpendicular line as well. And then we're going to connect these lines with a 45-degree angle from side to side of this board in alternating directions. And this will give us the shape for our corner supports. We'll go ahead and mark this in this direction. And then we'll come back and mark in the opposite direction. Time for a quick smoke break here. Alright, now that we get that taken care of, we're going to go ahead and mark our center line, which is roughly 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to draw a line all the way down connecting those center line marks. And then on that center line that we just drew, we'll go ahead and mark the center line of our support lengthwise at 3 5/8 of an inch. Okay, and then from that center line mark that we just made on our corner supports, we're going to go ahead and measure out 1.5 inches from each side of that mark, and then we'll draw a nice perpendicular line across the board at those marks. And then from that same centerline mark, we'll come back and measure out at 2 inches on both sides of that mark, and do the same thing. Measure it out and mark a perpendicular line all the way across. Okay, now coming back to that 3/4 inch center line that we marked earlier, we'll go ahead and make a mark at a 1/4 inch on each side of that mark, all the way down on each of our 4 corner support pieces. And then we'll go ahead and connect these marks with a line on each side, all the way down each of our 4 pieces. Once we've got all those lines marked out, we can go ahead and mark an X at alternating corners at each intersection of these 4 lines, and that'll give us the holes we need to drill for our screws. With our lines marked out, let's go ahead and make some cuts. We'll go ahead and cut our corner pieces here at the 45-degree angle we marked out earlier. Okay, so we were getting some kickback there, and we bent a blade, even the nicest of Bosch blades. As you can see in this shot, there's a knot on the underside of this board that I didn't notice while filming, and it bent my blade. Let's go ahead and get a new one on and finish out this cut. Definitely not the prettiest cut, and we're going to have to do some sanding, but it'll do. Okay, so with our 4 corner support pieces cut out at each of their 45-degree angles, we can go ahead and move to our drill press, where we'll get the screw holes drilled out. Like I said, you don't need a drill press for this procedure, but it does make it a lot easier to make things precise and accurate. Unfortunately, I didn't get the best footage of this process, but you can understand what's going on. We're drilling holes in wood here. Alright, now that we've got our screw holes drilled, we'll go ahead and use the center line that we marked earlier to mark the center line of this edge of the board, where the wing nuts will be used to hold on the pipe strap that attaches to the tent poles. Okay, so we'll go ahead and mark our center line. And then we'll mark 3/4 of an inch from each side of that center line. With those lines drawn, we'll just do a quick perpendicular line across the face of this board, and then we can mark the center of that line, which would be roughly 3/8 of an inch. And we can check to make sure our strap lines up. And look at that. Looking very good. We'll go ahead and mark the rest of these. Okay, so now that we've marked the location of our holes and drilled them out with a pilot hole, we can go ahead and come back with our 1/4 inch drill bit and make the final pass here. And We can line up our strap to make sure that fits. And beautiful. Look at that, it's a perfect fit. Excellent. Let's go ahead and get the other 3 finished, and we'll be set. That looks great. It's a little bit rough here and there. We'll have to do some sanding, but that's okay. That's pretty much it for our 4 corner pieces. Let's go ahead and finish up with the sides. Okay, so now we've got our 4 side pieces here that we cut out earlier. We're going to go ahead and mark 3.5 inches from the end. And then 3 inches from that mark. And then we'll continue to mark 3 inches all the way down until we have a 3.5 inch gap left at the other end. We'll come back with a nice perpendicular line at each of our marks. And then we can come in and mark our center line, which should be roughly 3/4 of an inch from one side. And we can mark each perpendicular line in that way, and that'll give us the center point for our drill holes. We'll go ahead and finish up the 3 other side pieces. Now that we've got our drill holes marked out, we can go ahead and get them drilled using our same 1/4 inch drill bit here. No need to drill pilot holes on these, as we're working with a fairly thick section of wood. Beautiful. Now we've got all of our holes drilled in this side piece here. We can go ahead and finish the other 3. Excellent. So now that that's complete, we can go ahead and line up the corner of 2 of our side pieces here. You can see we line up these 2 pieces tip to tip, and then the corner support piece just kind of sits right on top, just inside of where those 2 tips meet. We'll go ahead and use our corner support to drill a couple of pilot holes here. And we can run our bit all the way through. Perfect. And with the pilot holes drilled, we can go ahead and set our corner support piece on the top here. Run these screws just part way through, just so that they're sticking out a little bit through the back side of your corner support piece here. Just like that. And then we can go ahead and line these up with the pilot holes that we just drilled there. And run our screws part way through. You don't want to go all the way through quite yet. You want to wait, save that to when you have the net fully assembled. Go ahead and repeat that on the other 3 corners here. Just get it lined up. Run our screws part way through. And on this one, which is the last corner, we'll go ahead and tighten these down all the way, so that they're flush with the surface of the wood, as you can see there. We'll continue that on the other 3 corners. Get these nice and snugged up. Excellent. So now the net is assembled, it's time for the real fun, the manual labor. Time to break out the sandpaper and get to work. So let's get her cleaned up. Sanding is not a fun process, but it must be done. Now that that's complete, we can go ahead and take our Dremel here with this round grinding bit. Could use really any bit with a sort of round shape to it. And we're going to go ahead and just lightly chamfer each one of these holes all the way around the net. That way it'll make it much easier for the net to slide through when we're assembling it. And we can run that around every single one of these holes we just drilled, top and bottom of the net. This is not a necessary step. It's definitely optional, but it's something I recommend if you're going to be using this net for a while. Beautiful. That's it. All sanded up. All the edges nice and chamfered. Everything looking nice and smooth. Nothing to snag on in the tent or poke through, cause any tears. Everything looking nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and get her painted up. We can come back and put the twine in. Alright, we're back after a coat of paint. Didn't have a whole lot of paint left, so it's not perfect, but it'll do the trick just fine. No worries there. I recommend using Kills as it cuts down on your bacterial growth or anything like that that may occur. Alright, we've got our contractor twine here. I went with this nylon pink stuff. I like the color. It says it won't unravel easily, which I like. I was getting pretty tired of those Hydro Shop nets unraveling. Now comes the fun part. Where do we unravel this from? It's like some sort of mystery. There it is. Look at that. I had to have some help there. But we found it. We got it. Let's get it unraveled. We'll go ahead and start putting our net together. We're just going to do a simple basket weave pattern, over and under, back and forth. We'll go horizontally and then vertically. As you can see, we're just running our twine back and forth here across the net. And then at one corner we'll switch and we'll start going the opposite direction and just weave the net in and out, over and under, back and forth until we're all the way across. Then we can go ahead and finish up by tightening everything up a lot. You want to make sure it's nice and tight, that way you have good strength to control your plants and train them with. The net's not going to bend or push up in the center where you'll have a hot spot. You'll have a nice, even, flat canopy that you can manipulate easily. Okay, so that's it. The finished net assembled. We've got our twine wrapped through the net here and pulled nice and taut. As you can see, it's very tight. That'll give us a lot of control over our plants. It's not going to move side to side very much. That way, when we bend the plants back down under it, they'll stay where we want them to. You can see here the edge is nice and chamfered. Everything's nice and smooth. And this is the part where we get our hardware out. And you can see how that'll fit right through there and pull the tent pole in through the side. That being said, why don't we go ahead and get it into the tent and get it assembled. So we'll go ahead and take the net here, and you're going to want to move some things out of the way, and then we'll lift the net into place over the top of the plants, and it should have just enough tension to kind of float on its own. Don't trust it, don't put any weight on it, but it should be able to hold itself up fairly well. Once you get everything slid into place, you should be able to move the net to where you can get your strap in place with your 2 bolts. Just slide the bolts right through the holes there. And then you get your washers and your wing nuts and spin those onto your bolts. Just like that. And the second one there. And then you can adjust the net into place where you like and go ahead and then tighten it down. Alright, and I just wanted to make one quick adjustment to the design here. I did find out after I got this all assembled that the net was just a little bit too big for my tent. My tent wouldn't quite zip up when I was done, so what I had to do here was come along and I marked at 3/4 of an inch the center line of this wood, and then I just used the side of the corner support there to draw a little line where I'll cut this section here off of each corner, and with that section removed it should be able to fit into the tent just fine. So we'll go ahead and break out our saw here. Not perfect, but that'll do. And the other side. Excellent. We'll go ahead and sand those edges down, slide this back into the tent and see if it won't zip up. And this is the finished product, sitting in my 4x4 tent with 3-inch squares. This net is just perfect for my application. Floats nicely exactly where I put it, and all my branches will stay in place exactly where I have them. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. There's a link in description to plans and parts list if you need, if you'd like to replicate this project on your own. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.